One of the things that struck me about your book is in the very first chapter you open up and you basically allow us to have a peek into your life there. I was wondering if you could allow us to do that today.
Sure.
Well, when you first, I guess, entered the priesthood or were contemplating entering the priesthood, at the time you were Catholic, was that correct?
Raised mother Episcopal. In England it's called Anglican. Father Roman Catholic. So I was raised Roman Catholic. And I was going to be a Jesuit. I mean, that was my goal. That's the way my training was going. But I disagreed for some reason. As much as I was caught up in the church and wanted to be a priest and loved the robes, you know, I mean, when you talk about addiction, you know, you talk about paraphernalia, you know, cocaine, paraphernalia, alcohol, paraphernalia. There's always a kind of a ritual around cocaine use, a ritual around alcohol. Now there's a ritual, of course, I mean, that's where the word lives, with the church. So the robes, the incense, you know, the church, I suppose if you're evangelical it would be the hymns, the prayers, the, you know, coming to the conversions, but all that stuff, what I call the stuff, all that stuff really was as part of it, but I was against what the church said about birth control. It's very interesting. It's very interesting.
Well, but how long did you stay within the Catholic framework while you still... Did you have your questions about Catholic beliefs concerning birth control during your entire duration with the Catholic Church?
No, because, I mean, when you're a young man, you're not thinking about that. But Humanae Vitae came out. And so everybody then was invited to the debate, see. And I thought that we could all debate. I mean, that's the point. Let's debate. But then the encyclical came out and said, this is it. This is what you should believe. And it was at that point then that I said, no, I don't believe this. So it's very interesting. You know, I only say that because I think that in all of us, although I was part of it all, I couldn't go along with that. And I left. And I became an Anglican, which is like Catholic without Latin.
Right.
Do you follow what I'm saying? I mean, that's what it is.
But if there was a, say, we once talked about a liberal end of the Catholic, there's liberal Catholics, there are conservative Catholics, why couldn't you have gone, say, maybe toward the more liberal Catholics instead of just going all out?
Oh, because in 1969, I don't know how old you are, Dwayne, so I won't ask on TV and upset everybody, but this is 1969. In 1969, the decision was made, and people could agree or disagree in the church, but if you were going to be a priest, you had to believe it. You know, you had to toe the line. I didn't toe the line. And really, I think there is a part of me that's always been a bit of a rebel. So anyway, I then became an Anglican, got ordained in the Church of England, Episcopal, and really became very much part of the traditional Episcopal Church. And it was only when I was treated for my alcoholism in 1977, which is like 8 years afterwards, that I realized that part of my, if you like, bullshit, you know, the BS of life, part of the game wasn't just about drinking, using alcohol, but it was also about using religion to hide what was really going on for me. And I actually, in treatment, started to change my view of God. And that was the beginnings of this, because I saw that I was very rigid, and I was very black and white, and I was very judgmental, and I was very, in other words, the more judgmental you are, you see, you know, people who keep pointing the finger, it's almost like, you know, doing this.
Yeah.
See what I mean? People who point the finger are really keeping you away from them. If you look at it as a posture,
True.
See, they poke you to keep you away. See what I'm saying?
Right.
And I think that judgmental people are often very scared of you getting too close. So they judge you. And I think that in my recovery, I thought I was going for alcoholism. But actually, the therapist said, let's look at your codependency, let's look at your control issues, let's look at your arrogance. Because if you don't look at those issues, then how are you going to get well? So the whole spiritual experience started a long time ago. And I've written many books besides this. But every book has been about spirituality. And every book has been about being open. And every book has been about saying, okay, I'm a Christian, but God's at work in a Jew. You can't just limit God just to work in a Muslim. And here's the interesting thing. God's at work in an atheist. Because in many cases, critics, and if you say an agnostic or an atheist is a critic, they very often, if you like, are a watchdog for the church. They keep saying, hey, you guys, what are you doing? You know, who else is going to criticize us?
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
When you went from...
By the way,
Catholic-
Jesus was a great critic of the church. So if you think about it, probably Jesus was more close to people like yourself who are always criticizing, you know, and looking at issues, than he would be like a, what's his name, a Schuller or you know, some of these fundamentalists, Lou Sheldons.
Oh, well, that's not... I guess I'd rather be compared with Christ than Lou Sheldon, so... But in any event, when you went from Catholic to Anglican, was that a quick decision, or was there a gap between...
Yeah, about 6-7 months.
6 or 7 months?
Yeah, about a year.
Yeah. Did you experience... Some people, when they leave a closed system, and I don't know if we're referring to your experience within Catholicism as being a closed system, but some people, when they leave that, feel a sense of loss.
Actually, I didn't, because the two churches are very similar, very similar. And if you're a priest, it's almost like going from Yale to Harvard, or from Harvard to Yale.
Oh, I see.
Or from Cambridge to Oxford. Because you've got to, you see, of course I forget you're not a priest, right? So it's like, a lot of people don't realize that priests live in a very rarefied world. So the clothes and the style, the rules are a bit different, but they're very much the same. So it's all you've done is you've gone from one corporation to another corporation, but it's still a corporation, and you spend most of your time in the boardroom. See, you see, a good friend of mine who's a clergyman, I won't mention him because people will know who he is. But the thing is that he gets very bored. He's a priest, but he gets very bored if he's in the congregation. He likes to be up front, doing stuff. And I said, well, that's silly, because not everybody can be up front. And if everybody was up front, there'd be nobody sitting in the pews. But what he's saying is it's boring down there. And I think a lot of priests are like that. They get to be almost like actors, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
How often do you see Jerry Falwell sitting in the church listening to somebody else?
Oh, hardly ever. And when
So
when he does listen to other people, he's always sitting right behind the fellow.
Oh, really?
Right behind him, so that you are always aware of his presence. You can see him back there, and you always know that this fellow is here at Mr. Falwell's invitation.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I always think that, of course that's by the way, but I always think that Jerry Falwell looks like Barney Rubble. Remember Barney Rubble? Whenever I see Barney Rubble with the Flintstones, I think of Jerry Falwell. And they're similar. You look next time, caricature, they're very similar. Very, very similar.
I am speechless. How do I follow Barney Rubble here?
Yeah, but you know, I mean, it's sometimes what your image can make a big difference. If you always see a man in preaching, or they used to call the pulpit 6 foot above contradiction, because if you're in the pulpit, you are higher than everybody else. You know, some pulpits are high and big. They give you power. It's psychological. It's like, you know, if you there's a German movie on Hitler, and what is interesting is, you know what Hitler spent most of his time on?
Propaganda?
Yeah, well, yeah, but you know what the interesting mechanical attribute of Hitler, you know what it was?
What?
The loudness of the microphone. He spent ages with technicians developing so that when he spoke, it echoed. It was like a power. So it became bigger. I mean, his words became expansive, but not only were they expansive, they became very loud, and people got caught up in it.
You know, we hear the phrase, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Mm-hmm. It sounds, from the way you're describing the role of a priest or a pastor in general, they are always just a breath away from the temptation of being all-powerful people,
Absolutely.
of having the personality that would want to control them. Is this something that you wrestle with in your position as a priest?
Yeah, well, yes, I do, but I mean, but you're absolutely right, and it goes back right. I mean, I'm not trying to push my own religion. Mm-hmm. You know, well, why not? I'm here. You know, Jesus said that. I mean, Hilaire Belloc said, you know, power corrupts absolutely, the poet. But Jesus said that about the Pharisees and the scribes and the Sadducees. You wear the clothes, you have all these rules, you teach people all this stuff, and after a while, see, the worst thing is when you start to believe it. You start believing that you're special. You start believing when people are kissing your hands and worshipping you and bowing down. If you believe it, it's like actors. The healthy actor is somebody, you know, maybe like De Niro or Pacino or, you know, regular people. They go out and they sit and have coffee and stuff, and they don't buy into it. They know they're regular people. They have to go to the toilet, they have to shave, you know. But there are some people who become very snooty as actors. They think they're better than other people. And once that happens, I mean, you still may be a very good actor, but you become a very sad human being, tragic human being. And it's the same for if you believe your own press.